Well, good afternoon. Thank you for your patience again this morning. I know that as we celebrate extraordinary days, sometimes they call for extraordinary responses. So again, I really want to say thank you for your patience with the parking. And if you run across folks who decided not to wait, just tell them that it won't be like this every Sunday. So just thank you for your patience. I think it's good every once in a while to just kind of pause, kind of fly up to the big picture, and for us to reflect on our lives and to kind of notice what God is doing so that we're able to celebrate His blessings and so that we're able to kind of walk with God and let God lead us. I want to name, as a spiritual director, as a father, my observations this Lent. I think for some of us, this has been the best Lent you've ever had. That's been for a lot of different reasons. Some of us, it's been the daily Mass journey. For some of us, it's been the commitment to your spiritual exercise. And I think for some of us, it's just been the journey in the Old Testament, looking at the roots of the Mass, learning more about the Jewish flavor of our history and kind of like the intellectual route that we've been on in this Lent. I know for some of us has really opened up new ways for you to appreciate the Mass and new ways for you to experience God. And I just want to let you know I'm proud of you. Lent's been different in the homilies and the flavor of Mass overall. It's just been real different. We've had notes. It's like we've been in class. Many of you have been looking for the heart defibrillator on the outside of the church, and I've been passionate in all kinds of things, and it's just felt real different this Lent. And I just want to let you know I appreciate you. I appreciate you hanging with it. I know that as it's felt differently, it's also opened up a lot in your heart, and I just want to give praise to God for that. He's doing a lot in our lives. And every once in a while, your heart opens to the presence of God. Sometimes it happens in the hospital. People get sick. Sometimes people die. Every once in a while, what happens is our hearts are open to the fact that life is bigger than us and we need God. And there's a door that opens, and whether we know it or not, if we're not attentive to it, that door closes. And that little window that God gave us to draw closer to Him and to grow in our relationship with Him has an ebb and flow. Happens in my life, and it's happening in yours right now. For some of us, God has pierced your heart this Lent, and you're open. God seems real. The Mass is different. And I want to name an interior movement that's really important for us to pay attention to. And it's called fear. It's called vulnerability. You know, I think like a lot of us, I get comfortable where I am. And at different stages of my life, God calls me out. And I feel like I'm standing on the verge of something different. And I'm excited about that. And I know that if I take that step, it's going to be different. People might look at me different. I might feel different. I don't know what it's going to be like to keep going closer to God, but I just know that part of me wants it and part of me is afraid of it. And so what happens a lot of times in the spiritual life on the journey is we reach points of our life where we're there and we know He wants us. And we say to ourselves, I could take the next step with God, but I don't know where that's going to take me. I don't know what it's going to look like. And the window opens, and that window is going to close. And the ebb and flow of the spiritual life. Here, let me prove it to you. Don't raise your hand. Just think inside. I'd be willing to make a bet that most of us have experienced more growth in your life during Lent than during Easter. Easter theologically has much more power and weight. Easter liturgically has much more glory and circumstance. But for most people, Lent is the time of year where there's the greatest spiritual growth. Why? Because Lent, God calls us out. He opens up our hearts. We take a step. And we're faced with this interior movement, this experience on the inside of, if I go more, if I go deeper with God, I don't know where it's going to take me. So Father Mark, like a lot of us, instead of taking that step, I get nervous. My senior Bill Fitzgerald, who is, I think, 800 years old, looked at me on a retreat one day and he says, Mark, on the day of your ordination, you gave your life to Jesus, and you've been fighting with Jesus to take it back ever since. Story of my life. I want to take a step. I get afraid. I come back. I want to go more, and then I get afraid. And what happens is a lot of us, God pierces our hearts, and we are faced with the decision of whether we go forward or whether we go comfortable. That's where I think we are. 1,600 souls all together. Now, here's the awesome news. Here's how great God is. God knows that, and so He gives us this thing called Holy Week. Holy Week is the open arms of God that lures us to Himself, if we understand what the word holy means. Everybody grab your notes. Right there in the bulletin, right there with the bulletin. Notes. It's entitled Homily Notes. It's our last installment of this style of the homily notes. Number one, what does the word holy mean? We are in Holy Week. The dictionary says this. The dictionary says that holy is specially recognized. It's devoted or dedicated to the service of God. It has a certain quality, and it is entitled to worship. So the dictionary defines holy as recognized, dedicated, with a quality oriented toward worship. It's not how God defines it. And I think one of the things that has opened up our hearts and pierced our lives is that we have taken the risk during the homilies during Lent to not look at the Bible like an American, but to look at the Bible like a Jewish Israelite of 2,000, 4,000 years ago. And when we have ancient eyes to see, we have fresh ears to hear how awesome the beauty of the message is. So I want us to define holiness today not like the Western mind, but like an ancient Israelite. In the Bible, the Hebrew word for holy is kadosh or kedusha. And it means consecrated to God, set apart from the secular, set apart for God, set apart for the sacred. In the eyes of God, holy is for God alone, and separate, set apart. Let's say those three things together. Ready? For God alone, and set apart. Now here's the thing. I want to acknowledge that there should be a tension inside of you right now. I hope you feel it. Here's the tension. In America, we want everybody to get along. Everybody's the same. We're all equal. There's nothing different about us. Now, sometimes that leads to justice. That leads to racial equality and a beautiful gift from God. And sometimes that just leads to utter confusion because, no, we're not all the same. Now, there are things that are different about us, and there's beauty in the different. There's complementarity in the different. And God says, no, not everything is the same, and not every one or time is the same. God says there are some things that are separate. They are set apart. It's not for the rest. And depending on how you define holy, depends on how you look at holiness and Holy Week. Like, so for example, if we look at the word holy through performance, then I bet you two things are going to happen. Number one, you will compare yourself to people who you think are holy, and you will never strive for holiness. See, in the Western mind, Mother Teresa is holy because of her performance. She didn't sin, and she did great things. Now, I want to apologize if anyone has ever presented holiness in that way to you. Because if that's how we define holiness, you don't do some things and you do great things, then we'll always compare ourselves to Mother Teresa, we'll always shut down, and we'll never strive for holiness. That's not holy. That's Western. God defines holy as something completely different. See, God says things that are holy are consecrated. They are sacred. They are set apart. They are not secular. That's how God defines holy. And God says to us, He wants us to be holy. He wanted Israel to be holy. Why is Israel holy? Because she's great? No. See, she's in Israel. She's in Egypt. And what does God do? God says, I am going to take you away to be my special possession, and you're going to be separate. And of course, when God put Israel in the Holy Land, and He gave her His own land, they were surrounded by all these people, and God says, you need to live different. So don't eat pork, and all of the blood laws, and all those things are in a sense designed to help Israel not be like everybody else, but to be separate, to be different, to be distinct. And God says, not only does He want His people to be holy, but to help us when we don't want to take that next step. To help all of us when we want to go back to the comfortable. God says, in the rhythm of life, I want you to give me time. The Sabbath. You see there in the notes when God gives us the Sabbath. Look at the quote right there from Exodus chapter 20. Remember the Sabbath day. Keep it holy. Hey, you have 6 days to work. You have 6 days to do all those things. God says, I want this day to be set apart. I want it to be different. Now, does that mean you can't hang out with your family? Of course you can hang out with your family. Does that mean you just have to check off the list and go to church? No. It means that our interior posture toward the Sabbath needs to be different from the rest of the week. And of course, I want to go to church because that elevates my heart and brings me into God. I receive the sacraments. But it also doesn't mean that after I'm done with Mass, I can go back and live like America does. See, God says this day is set apart. It's different. It's holy. And that's the invitation for us in Holy Week. What's placed before us this week is a special week. God says, I have given you 51 weeks, but this one is set apart. It's different. Mass is longer today. I can't do anything about that. It's different. We have palms. We had a gospel before Mass. We have a gospel in Mass. The gospel is a longer gospel. We're blessing things. We're singing different things. Today is different. And this week is different. Why? Because when you and I finish Lent, you and I find ourselves ready to take the next step. And a lot of us are afraid to do that. So what is Holy Week? Holy Week is God's invitation to come closer to Him. It requires sacrifice. It requires a different posture toward all. And what that does is for any of us who want to go deeper, God is drawing you to Him in a week that is set apart. So let's open up the bulletin. I want to show you a few things that we have this Holy Week as an invitation, and then we'll pray Mass and let the Lord celebrate the gift as the Lamb of God. Let's go to the red box. That's going to be on page 3 of the bulletin all together. Page 3 of the bulletin, I want to walk us through some special invitations from my heart to yours. Monday night, tomorrow night, Dr. Brant Pitre will be with us. Dr. Brant Pitre is one of the nation's foremost biblical scholars, and I would say he's one of the nation's scholars when it comes to the Jewish roots of the liturgy. If he's not the best, then I'd like to see who's better. He's an incredible gift, and he's going to be here at our parish. Now, here's the thing, y'all. We're never going to get this opportunity again. You see, we will never have the Lent that we've had with Dr. Pitre on Monday. Well, he might come again, but not like this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because you've never been where you are now. Monday night, he's going to connect some dots, he'll answer some questions, and he'll walk us through the parts of the Mass that I couldn't walk you through. I'll promise you this. 5 weeks ago, I promised you that if you hung with me during Lent, your life would be changed. And God came through in His promise. I promise you this. If you come Monday night, you will learn more than you've ever thought, and you will walk out different. Your life will be changed after His presentation tomorrow night. It requires sacrifice, but that's okay because this week is different. It's set apart. Tuesday is our Seder meal. It's a chance for us to celebrate an ancient Jewish ritual, and it'll be something very different, but I think you're going to love it. And because community is such a part of our past and a rich part of our history, it's a chance for us to come together as a family. Last week, when we asked people to sign up if you had not been a part of the roster, we had over 100 people. That's new people to our parish in a way, and we want you to get to know the new people in our parish. I want the new parishioners to get to know some of the folks who've been around for a while. I want us to come together on Tuesday night for a beautiful celebration. Wednesday night, I think we need to appreciate the person of Jesus Christ and the gift that He is giving you. Dr. Perez is going to walk us through a medical analysis of the last 24 hours of Jesus' life, the crucifixion. Why? So that you can appreciate the gift that God gave you. Thursday night, it's Holy Thursday. Now, here's the thing. If you've never been to Holy Thursday, I want you to listen to me right now. I'm asking that you come. Because it's a sacred, it's a beautiful Mass. It's where Jesus institutes the Eucharist. It's where we celebrate the gift of His priesthood. It's going to look different, feel different. It's going to smell different. It's going to be an awesome night. I want you to come. Friday, the Hike for Christ. If you've never done the Hike for Christ, come, 9 to 3. If you've never been on Friday to the solemn service, we had this year at 6 o'clock. Now, last year, I got all fired up on Palm Sunday, and WWL got a hold of it and misquoted me on the air. I'm not gonna go that route this year, but I'm just going to say this. God's asking you on Friday that you just be with Him. And if we can't give God one day, then I just think that we have bigger conversations with God than just the one day. So I'm just going to ask that this week is not a regular week. I'm just telling you now. Because what happens this week, it's not regular. And on Friday, He's just asking that we separate the day. It's different. And if you feel the rub of that, that's okay. It's not your problem. That's theirs. But He's asking that we would have holiness in our life, which requires that some things are set apart just for Him. And of course, we have Easter. It's an awesome day, and I'm sure that we're going to celebrate that. There's a lot going on in the church this week. I know that. Because I love you. I love you enough to know that some of us are on the verge of the best awakening you've ever had in your spiritual life. And I love you too much to let you fall right here. This week, we are doing everything that we can to walk with you in that next step with God. What's placed before us is an invitation. For those of us who are ready to go deeper, God's calling you deeper. This week is the way that God's going to help you take the next step. For those of us who don't know how to go deeper, and you're feeling the temptation to check out and to go back to your comfort zones, listen to me right now. That is not the voice of God. I want to name it. I want to walk with you in it. And I don't want you to go back to where you were. God is calling us to holiness. God is calling us to Him. This week, Holy Week, is supposed to be different. Let's take this step together. Let's open up our hearts together. And let's let this Holy Week be the best week we've ever had together. Amen.